Сьогодні маємо визначного гостя, якого я дуже би хотів дійсно бачити і хотів бачити в нашому університеті, і це здійснилося. Це прем'єр-міністр Польщі, професор Лєшек Бальцеровіч. В тому часі, коли я жив в Польщі, коли ми думали про майбутнє, що буде з Польщею, пан Лєшек взяв на себе повну відповідальність за зміни, які наступали, власне, в цій країні. Мало хто вірив, я признаюся так само, що будуть ті зміни в такому напрямку йти, як вони пішли. І ми, очевидно, духовно підтримували, але це була справжня боротьба за цінності, в які треба було пройти довгий шлях в Польщі. Це сталося, але в тому часі, коли ця відповідальність була в руках не тільки пана Лєшека Бальцеровича, були ще інші, пан Тадеуш Мазурецький і багато інших святої пам'яті, вони на той час, знаєте, пережили страшні тортури від свого суспільства. Сьогодні вони їх величають, суспільство. Сьогодні суспільство дивиться на них як на прикладів. Ми би бажали собі, щоб в нашій країні були такі відважні люди, які би взяли на себе повну відповідальність за країну і за майбутнє цієї країни. Хочу, щоб ми справді встали і оплесками привітали пана професора Медіа-хабу. W naszym uniwersytecie i mam nadzieję, że to pierwszy, ale nie ostatni raz. Тут сьогодні буде така дискусійна панель, і пана Ярослава Лєшека нам не треба представляти. Більшість з нас, думаю, що всі знають, це член комітету підприємців Львівщини, сенатор нашого католицького університету, дуже активний громадський діяч. Думаю, що буде дискусія дуже цікава. І модератором цієї сьогоднішньої дискусії є пан Роланд Ойденштейн, це є центр. Я думаю, що краще пан Роланд сам розкаже про себе і про партію, і про інституцію, яку він репрезентує. Дякую всім. Запрошую.
Дякую. Слава Україні! I'm going to continue in English. I'd like to congratulate you for sacrificing a beautiful Saturday evening, late afternoon, to hear our opinions. So thank you for taking your time. I'm Roland Freudenstein, and I work in the Wilfried Martens Center for European Studies, which is the think tank of the European People's Party. Now, People's Party may sound threatening to some, but I assure you it's not in this case. It is just very simply Europe's biggest political family values. It's Europe's biggest political family. It is the center-right, liberals, Christian Democrats, and conservatives in the European Parliament. So we are affiliated to that party. Other foundations in Brussels are affiliated to other parties, and we try to bring out the best in the European Union. So generally, we are busy with EU problems. But our president is Mikuláš Dzurinda, former Prime Minister of Slovakia, who, when the situation in Ukraine became dramatic last year, had this idea of launching a program called Ukraine Reforms. Now, many people think about reform in your country, even outside Ukraine, as you know. But this was not to be the classical consulting business. This was to be political support for transformation in your country. And done by people with a particular credibility. In other words, reformers from Central European countries, Central European democracies, that successfully transformed their countries to democracy, the rule of law, and the market economy in the 1990s and beyond. So the whole idea is to bring people like Leszek Balcerowicz or Andrius Kubilius from Lithuania, or Mikuláš Dzurinda himself, or Ivan Miklos, his Minister of Finance, or Yanis Janša from Slovenia, and many, many other people like this, to bring them to Ukraine for a 2-day program, 2-3-day program, you know, crammed full of interviews, meetings with focus groups, discussions, debates, and small workshops in order to get across one big idea. We've done it, you can do it as well. That's the message that we want to convey. And we're extremely happy to be here with you at the Catholic University of Ukraine. And I have 2 excellent panelists who have already been introduced. Well, I may say this one thing about Professor Bальцерович. When I was in Poland for 7 years, in the second half of the 90s until 2001, we had an excellent cooperation. And actually, I'm proud to say, I think we twice went to see Helmut Kohl in Bonn at the time. It was before the capital moved to Berlin. And I think these were important meetings for Leszek Balcerowicz when he was the chairman of the Unia Wolności and a deputy prime minister in Poland.
I hope for Kohl too.
Oh, for him, absolutely, absolutely, totally. Thank you for coming. I would like to have 2 short impulses here on the question, the issue of the day, urgent steps, how to seize the momentum for change in Ukraine. So, Professor Bальцерович, panie premierze, floor is yours for a very short time, and we want to leave maximum time for debate with you.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. Well, to be very short, you need only 2 steps. First, correct diagnosis, and based on that, correct therapy. It's very simple. Now, correct diagnosis. With respect to the economy in Ukraine, it's pretty easy. You have to stabilize the economy. I am going to say what does it mean. It's started already to happen. And based on that, you have to restructure the state so as the economy can grow. Now, the first step is well advanced, even though not finished. What does it mean, stabilize the economy? If inflation is high, you have to lower it. How do you do a market economy? By initially increasing interest rates, which has happened. It may be unpleasant for the entrepreneurs, but it's very good for the economy, because otherwise, if inflation continues to increase, every entrepreneur would suffer. And I think there's a very competent team at the central bank. I visited them yesterday. Second part, if the banking sector is fragile, as it is in some parts, you have to make a quick analysis which banks are very fragile. If those who are beyond repair have to be closed down. Those who are maybe repaired can be recapitalized, mostly by the private owners. And there are some private owners. Banking system. Third, what the term is called carrying it out, meaning financial relationship with abroad. We inherited a huge problem after Yanukovych because there were very low reserves. And then there was Russian aggression, which has caused an economic shock, not only because of occupation, but even more because of blockade of Ukrainian exports to Russia. Every country would suffer recession. And we suffered recession. It is not because of the policies of the current government, but because of this very low level of reserves, foreign reserves, and because of this trade shock. And reserves were at a very low level. As a result of all this, hryvnia has weakened very much. Fortunately, Ukrainian authorities did not stick to fixed rate of exchange, which could not be defended. To defend something which cannot be defended is very stupid. So there was a transition to a floating rate of exchange, which we introduced in Poland in the year 2000. And how do you stabilize rate of exchange if it can float? By increasing stability, so people would not escape with their money and capital would flow in. This is on the... Okay, so this is stabilization. Stabilization is absolutely indispensable for growth. You cannot grow if your economy is increasingly unstable. So this is pro-growth policy. But it's necessary, albeit not sufficient. So what is the best indicator for growth? How fast do small and medium enterprises grow? Because this reflects the environment created by the state. So if there's a small sector of small and medium-sized enterprises, this means there's a better environment. If it starts to grow, it reflects changes. And I know that there is a plan to some extent in advance of making a massive deregulation, meaning getting rid of bad regulations. That's very important. I talked yesterday to a Minister of Economy. By the way, I had forgotten to praise the Minister of Finance. She's a great lady. She deserves a lot of praise. So you deregulate. Deregulation is necessary but not sufficient, because if politicians are not monitored, then they're pressed by other groups, they would regulate. They would create new regulations. So if you go on to have good legal framework, you have to organize constant, professional, citizens monitoring of legislators. In the US too, everywhere. Okay, so then to change the behavior of bureaucracy, sometimes it's not enough to regulate, but you have to change bureaucracy. How do you change? You change the people at the top. And then top down. And sometimes you have to dissolve. If a given agency is so corrupt, you have to dissolve it. I remember in Indonesia, they have a very corrupt custom officials. You don't have this problem. Well, they dissolved, and they hired a Swiss firm to collect custom duties for a while. So you need improvement for a small, medium-sized business, then demonopolization, because competition is absolutely necessary, and demonopolization involves liberalization of trade with the West, including the European Union. This should not be delayed. You know, we like the fruits of competition, but those who are affected dislike competition, including some entrepreneurs. But this is not enough not to introduce competition. And finally, you need to compete privatization. Because remember, state-owned sector is an enclave of socialism. It always it is either politicized, which cannot bring about good results, or is left to its own devices. There's no supervision, no professional supervision, and then the managers are stealing, are not doing anything, etc. So privatization is completely elementary as a principle. There may be some exceptions, but the burden of the proof of not privatizing should fall off those who say, no, it should not be privatized. But the proof is not just to say this is strategic. What is strategic? It cannot be defined. I can continue, but I think that these are the most essential steps. Some of them have been taken. Some of them have to be taken. Some have to continue. But let me say what is essential to complete this first political stability, because if a disarray in the parliament, in politics, you cannot continue. And second, as I already said, but let me repeat, a very careful professional monitoring by those parts of civil society who believe in private ownership, in economic freedom, and the rule of law. There is a lot in the Catholic philosophers who can teach, including Spanish scholastic and St. Thomas the same. So you are in a good university. for understanding the essential which are needed in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this playbook on reform, if you want. But before we continue, just one more technical remark, or actually a content remark. I'd like to also thank our partners in organizing this whole program, Ukraine Reforms, which is the Kiev School of Economics, Stronger Together, and the Reanimation Package for Reform. Without our partners here in Ukraine, this would not have been possible. All right, let me now continue with our panelist from Ukraine. Yaroslav Rushishin, correct? Wow. Listen, I practiced this for half an hour. I'm making it Rushishin. Okay. Should I say Yaroslav Ivanovich, right?
Nobody knew that is not true.
No, we stick with the first version. Okay, we've heard the playbook. Can you tell us what, in your view, and returning to the title, urgent steps, what of this has been done, and which part of this is the first urgent thing to be tackled right now?
Mm-hmm.
The floor is yours.
Okay, I would like to tell a few words about, that's for me very, very difficult to discuss with my professor. Yeah? I'm student can discuss with professor, but that's why I was looking for the possibility where I disagree, and I found a small thing which is which stay on the position that Poland in 90s and Ukraine in 15 is different things. I could compare government of Tadeusz Mazowiecki and Leszek Bальцерович with our Kuchma and Pędzelnik, remember that time. Yes, but we disappear in corruption, but Poland jumped, yes, that time. And today, corruption is so deeply influent already in our connections that somewhere corruption is already is just one media to connect people. For example, I had to take a license for supplying of hot water, yes, and Sheremetyevo came and canceled this license. I was so happy, beautiful, but I was stupid because there is another permission. There was license and there was permission as well. It means license you couldn't make without permission, permission you couldn't make without license. Just corruption, you see? That's already corrupted way to do. And that's why I a little bit disagree with this sentence that we have to change bureaucrats from the top, yes? And Sheremetyevo is to the bottom. And Sheremetyevo is a very good example of this. This bottom at him in 3 months, right away. And my opinion is, and I would like to maybe we'll discuss this, that we have to maybe, and this is your opinion as well. I will take with this university. So here is state, like bureaucratic organization. Let's say here is civil society or społeczeństwo obywatelskie, tak? No tutaj economy or business, let's say business, yes, business. I never agree that state will want to change something in these connections. We have to take, and this is your opinion as well, to take maximum work from state on the regulation of the economy, and not just economy maybe, life, to business and to civil society. Then state will stay like this, small, maybe just justice here, to leave just justice. All the rest has to be moved from deeply corrupted organization, very, very deep. And this is here is Committee of Entrepreneurs of Lviv region, and we have already experienced more than 10 years. We are fighting with this corruption and no results, you see. And yes, little bit improvement. We can say that we have now little improvement. And you know that last rank that Ukraine is already 98 number. Yes, Russia is hundreds. What is this? Doing business or something like this, similar to this. But I can explain just one thing at this point, because we have moratorium control of the entrepreneurs when they are not coming. Yes, already 2 years. And that's why start to be a little bit easier. It means this formula is working. So to change from my point of view, and I would like to discuss maybe this, because question is not what to do. Question is methodology, how to do. Yes, we know what to do. We agree what to do, but how to do in Ukrainian conditions, that's completely different things. And my point of view that state cannot lead in this process. Thank you.
Right. Thanks. So there we have it. It's up to you, the citizens, civil society, and business people. Absolutely. I'd like to open this up to the floor now. Whoever has a question, give me a sign. We'll take a couple of statements in a row, maybe, and please introduce yourselves very briefly, just with your name and function. And I'm waiting for volunteers. Silence. Come on.
Oh,
Yes.
Roberta, I was talking about him. Sorry.
My name is Lješek.
This is my profession.
Yaroslav, I'm well alive. I'm not eaten. It was 6 months, not 3 months. But anyway, Professor, we're happy to see you here at Ukrainian Catholic University. I'm just trying to save the situation, so it's why I raised my hand. I didn't plan to do that, even after the remarks that I did not entirely agree with Yaroslav. Because Yaroslav, look, I mean, my theory is different. If you're talking about, we shouldn't talk about me, but you were talking about me. I did what I could do in 6 months. And then it was either the choice to adapt or leave. And I obviously left. Now, my successor came, who is fighting. I don't know for how long he will fight, but he will eventually leave, and that would be good too, because he is an excellent investment banker. He should leave too. Eventually he will come. I don't think you will stay there for too many years. So I think one by one, basically carrying this stick. By the way, in a way, it was done in Poland, Professor. Am I right? You were coming and leaving, and
Only twice.
and not once or twice, So there was this refreshment time that obviously you needed to, and regroup and form the political base, which we are doing here too with Yaroslav. And Professor, can you tell us more about this? How do we really form the political support for the agenda that you're mentioning? Because yes, the Minister of Finance is fine, the Minister of Economy is fine, the Chair of the National Bank is generally fine. But I'm worried that they do not have enough of the political support, because if you ask what parties support the agenda that you have mentioned, I have a problem. There are two deputies from Bloc of Poroshenko here, so I guess they will ask further questions. Mustafa is over here. Okay. So it seems like we will have a good discussion here. But anyway, Professor, what's your recommendation? Given the 20 years of Polish experience and this regrouping, constant regrouping of Polish reforms, and seems like it's to be continued with the new president.
Well, I may add that Leszek Bальцерович, took over a political party. The Unia Wolności elected him as the chairman. That's a major fusion between the reform spirit and the political party, I would say. But please answer.
Where is Unia Wolności now?
Well, it merged into another party. It's the most important. It's not the name of the party, but a strong liberal current in politics. When I say liberal, I mean lots of freedom within the framework of the rule of law. So not anarchy. But economic freedom, let me say, it's the most important for everybody. Because if the economic freedom is very much reduced, then economy suffers. The most extreme case of reduction of economic freedom was socialism, complete destruction, and this was a catastrophe. Okay, so perhaps I can say a few words. The first stage of reforms in Poland it's not very useful as an example for you now, because there were special conditions. Euphoria, and at the same time economic catastrophe. But there was also an opportunity to move forward very fast, and for some reasons we moved very fast because I had a hobby. I was interested in reforms even during the times, and nobody dreamt that one day would be free. But people have different hobbies. Some collect stamps, some other people collect knowledge about reforms. So okay, we move forward. It was politically pretty easy, with determination. Economically it was very difficult, but with the speed of changing things in the right direction, you can achieve a lot. But this is already gone. But as Roland said, I left politics in 1991 without any intention ever to return to it, because I have not regarded myself as normal politicians. I was not a normal politician. I just wanted to do a job. Then I went, and I spent very nice 2 or 3 years outside politics. But somehow I was asked to take over a party, because in normal politics you do improve things through the party, not individual. And I was elected the chairman of Freedom Union. We entered into a coalition with a much larger coalition, and between 1997 and the year 2000 there was a second wave of reforms under very different conditions, without the benefit of euphoria, etc., etc. And then what counts? Again, you have to have a very good team, and you have to know how to fight. Right? How to fight, how to win the battle, even if you are smaller, politically. And you have to be better as far as the speed is concerned and communication. During normal politics, communication counts very much. And I can say I never pretended that I stand for another program which I believe in, meaning liberal, freedom. But I won elections, personal elections, as an outsider in the most industrialized region of Poland. Right? So win an election in Donetsk, I think. But I did it. And I win with a leader of trade union movement who stemmed from that. So this can be done with proper communication. So, but not, if I can have to say, share with you some observations about policies and politics here, which is based on my many conversations and what I read. And first, I am convinced of, based on my observations, that this team, which is now in politics, is the best compared to the previous one. I'm not saying it's ideal, but certainly is the best. But to win a very important peaceful battle, one has to meet 3 conditions at the same time. First, to have a clear, concise, and concrete program. Of course, with the right content. And I know that there are some programs, each of them are 200 pages. Well, this is not a program. You need a graphic so that everybody knows what should be done and when. So this has to be done, I hope. Second, of course, you have a team I mentioned. And, having a good team means not only members who have an intellectual grasp, but management, coordination. I know many professors who understand what to do but cannot do. These are typical academics. By the way, I was not a professor, and only because I was not a professor, I could manage something. If I had a professor, I would refuse to take on responsibility. And third, communication. And now I think it can be also improved. Communicating with the external world. Many people are sympathetic with Ukraine. But even sympathetic people do not know enough what we are doing. And sympathetic people, there are no reforms or too slow reforms, etc. This can be improved quite a lot. Not by propaganda, but by good communication. And communication within the country. So when I talk to people who are proponents of change, they usually, but where is communication? Where do people know? So there are certain points certainly which can be improved on policies and on presentation.
Panie Jarosławie.
So I cannot advise anything to Sheremeta. This is my professor as well. I don't know.
Well, you did it once. You could do
I'm
it.
sitting between professors and I don't know what to do. But if you allow me, I would like to have a question as well. To put the question. Leszek Bальцерович, you have been here 7, maybe 10 years ago, and this used to be organized by our Chamber of Commerce as a member. And that time, you made some research between post-socialist countries, and you didn't finish yet at that time. But previous result used to be that there is very visible correlation between radicalism or reform and success of country later. And you make example like Estonia and Poland as well that time, and unsuccessful places like Hungary, for example. Yes, that. So I would like to. I didn't read anywhere about results of this research. Your research. Can you tell result of this research? Is it so straight correlation between radicalism and success?
You know, I am avoiding making research on myself. I rather rely on other people's research.
You had money,
There is
a lot of
a
money.
lot-
You had a lot of money at the time.
No, there is a lot of research on comparative research, which tries to explain differences, especially in economic growth after socialism. Recently, there has been a very good book published by the Peterson Institute in Washington, under editorship of Anders Aslund, who is a Swede working in Ukraine, so you can have a look at that. And there are certain conclusions. That's true that countries which started earlier and moved in the right direction and maintained or even advanced have much better results on growth than countries which for some reasons delayed change and then make only some changes but did not move more to a market economy and lots of competition. So one can make a contrast between, say, Poland, Estonia. On the other hand, Ukraine, because for the first years, as you can read in Oleg Havrilishin, who is a great Ukrainian economist, you can read it, yes. He depicts what has happened during the first year for some political reasons. Okay, but bygones are bygones. Now you have examples of countries who missed the first period, or have a bad couple of years, like in Slovakia.
8 years.
Under Mečiar. He was Slovak Yanukovych. So economy was growing, but unsustainably at the cost of imbalances. But Slovaks have managed to win. I mean, the reformers have managed to create a reform coalition, and there are two great guys from Slovakia, Dzurinda and Ivan Miklos. Both of them work here. And I think they are great because they know how to start after the country has not used very well some years. And I think Slovakia is a good example. There are also countries which moved from a very good position, like Slovenia. That was the most advanced country. But what has happened to Slovenia? A catastrophe. Why? Because Slovenian has maintained banking sector dominated by state-owned banks. The state-owned banks are subject to politicization sooner or later. And then when politicians direct the credit, there's a growing share of bad credits, and there was a collapse of Slovenian economy. So there's a lot of lessons. But the main lesson is, do not give up. And there are countries which succeeded even after the period of populist policies. And that's one thing referring to you. I think we agree on that to improve policies and at the same time to reduce corruption, you have to reduce the government, the state. And how do you do that? First, you deregulate, then massively, then you dissolve or restructure unnecessary or corrupt agencies, and this has to be concrete. And the third point is this. Petty corruption involves informal payment to doctors, to teachers, to professors, etc. Yes? This is informal corrupt market. What is better, to have a formal market or corruption? So perhaps it's better to move to some payments for health services which would be normal market or co-payments instead of having corruption.
Any comments, ideas, questions? Sir.
Mr. Bальцерович, one of the specific features of Ukraine is the absence of Ukrainian solidarity.
That's true. But you have my down.
I suggested that it is a Ukrainian fault, that this is a Ukrainian mistake. But I was told in Washington that this is actually the basic feature of new times. All protest movements in Occupy movements in America, umbrella movements in
Hong Kong,
Singapore, in Muslim countries, all these protest movements have specific feature to have autonomous structure of different autonomous units. So, is the existence of one political party, so to say, the party of modernization, the main precondition for reforms, or we may reconcile the existence of these pluralistic, so to say, political units with the main task to make reform?
You mean whether the one-party system is to be recommended for reforms? Is that your question?
I mean to have one party for pushing as Solidarność.
Well, certainly Solidarność initially helped Poland because there were many people who were professionals and who were patriots. And the first Solidarity was a great movement, the first Solidarity which existed in 1981. It was a movement for change within a certain limits of not inviting Red Army. So we could not go further. We could not propose privatization because this would for sure invite Red Army. But we've been working on some other things, local government, etc. So this was, but Solidarność was suppressed by martial law and was reduced, but still existed. And it was revived after the so-called talks at the round table, and it was the main opposition under the leadership of Lech Wałęsa. And having this opposition has helped. Having this opposition became the part of the government, not in every respect, because Solidarność originally wanted to have very high indexation of wages, which under conditions of high inflation, which existed in Poland, would perpetuate high inflation. So one of the first things which I had to do was to abolish indexation. They agreed, because otherwise I would resign. But I agree that it helped because to some extent there was a source of alternative cadres, people. Some of them were prepared, some of them were not prepared. Second, they were monitoring what was happening in state-owned enterprises, which still existed, because it was impossible to privatize just in one night or 1 year or 1 year. So it helped us. But in some other countries there was no Solidarność, there was no in the Baltics, and somehow they moved forward.
If I may just add one observation, because I've really studied this whole development of solidarity in the 80s and 90s, I would say, first of all, solidarity, solidarność, was an extremely broad tent in today's political terms, right? I mean, just an example, 2 examples from the last couple of weeks. In Brussels for the 25th anniversary of the creation of free trade unions recently, in the Polish permanent representation organized a panel, and there was one member of the European Parliament, Bogusław Sonik, who was one of the, maybe not so prominent, but one of the activists of solidarity in the 80s, and he claimed this year in Brussels, a couple of weeks ago, that, we were looking for a third way between socialism and capitalism. Well, he is a member of the European Parliament for Law and Justice, the more populist party in the Polish political spectrum today, which has some economically leftist tendencies, admittedly. Anyway, so that was his view of history. Now, I happened just 2 weeks ago to be in Gdańsk at the Center for European Solidarity, which basically is a huge narrative museum giving you an overview of the development of solidarity and martial law and then the roundtable talks and all this. And we had a special guide, Zbigniew Janas, who was one of the better known solidarity activists, actually one who was not arrested on 13th of December 81, but then went underground, went into hiding, and was hiding out for a couple of years from the authorities. Now, I asked him this question. Panie Zbyszko, did you really look for a third way between socialism and capitalism? And he said, what? Are you kidding me? What we basically wanted, well, he admitted that there were several opinions in solidarity, but he talked about himself and his friends and said, our line was, the system in which we live doesn't work, the system that we see over there in the West does work, so let's go for the system that works. So in a way, you had all these opinions in solidarity, and I would say, just in answer to your question, I think one broad movement can be fruitful and even necessary for system change. If you have to change the whole parameters, you have to bring about democracy, the rule of law, and the market economy. But then there is a logical and completely natural development which consists in such a movement splitting up into different political forces. And I think it's the most normal thing in the world. And I don't think that Ukraine today is still at the point where you need regime change, if I may call it that. Right? You're beyond that. But okay, this is my opinion, please. What do you think?
Yes, I think, yes, if I can few words about this. My point of view is that Solidarność at that time used to be a different type of union. When boss of Solidarność, when chief of Solidarność started to be president, yes, at that time, Lech Wałęsa, and that's why that time that was a beautiful instrument against populism. There was nothing from the left side, nobody from left side, because Solidarność was in authority, you see, and unions that. What competitors of Solidarność unions used to be? I didn't hear about this, and that's why because of Solidarność disappeared today. That's why you start to talk more and more about populism, even in Poland, which is growing. Yes, could be grow after this election, last election. We have so deeply as well, together with corruption, so deeply. Deep populism everywhere. I don't want to call this populism. This is demagogy. This is not populism, you see. And in our conditions, it's much more difficult to win election with liberal position, completely open liberal position.
Don't call it liberal, but do it. Call it anti-liberal, but do it. But few explanations. First solidarity in 881 has to be for the third way. Because to move towards the first way would invite Red Army. So some people were convinced that the third way is the best, and some people like myself, well, it's the best under the constraints. Once constraints were removed, it was completely obvious that one should go to the first way and not to the third way. So it was obvious. But some people were left behind in their views. Solidarność, who formed the basis of the first government, Mazowiecki government, and Bielecki government, when I was in charge of the economy, went for radical reforms, radical market reforms. They left behind the third way because conditions changed. Then, between 1993 and 2000, I was in coalition with Solidarity movement, and we accelerated free market reforms and local government. But then Solidarity became a normal, meaning awful trade union. So it's more or less, more populist trade unions. So one should not confuse these first Solidarność, the two stages, with what has become of it. But basically, Solidarność has played a very important and positive role in Poland's history. Why not on the elections? Because I've noticed that you alluded that perhaps the result of last elections in Poland are due to a deep shift in the views of Polish society. I don't think it's true. In mass democracy, you can beat your opponents with bad program if you have better campaign. The campaign matters. In Poland, the president who was very popular, who thought he's so popular, he does not have to work. So there was no campaign, in fact. And only the last 2 weeks tried to catch up, not very cleverly. So he lost because of much worse campaign. And that's a pity, I think, but it's the fact. But it certainly does not mean that he lost because of the deeper shift in the position of Russia. So the share of populists and non-populists probably is not very much changing. It was because of that, and his rival has been working very hard for 6 months or a couple of months. He's been meeting lots of people, making promises to each group separately and to all at the same time. A very clever campaign through the social media. Then young people are very emotional among youngsters, so they tend to support what is radical. But don't interpret this as a result of a deep shift in Poland's society. And one thing I think the position, Polish position on Ukraine would not change. And that's good.
This is what I was looking at.
Great.
That was the question.
Madame.
So, Leszek, you have mentioned that the presentations and discussions about reforms are very important, and I completely agree with you. So, I would like to ask you, what target groups did you discuss reforms in Poland? Yeah, first, and I think that there is a huge lack of realization of the reforms now, especially in the regions of Ukraine. And how would you advise to do it for us? What target groups to discuss it with? Where to have the presentations? And probably how to make people to realize first about the importance of the reforms and how they are going on. Because a lot of people are disappointed now, even those who were in Maidan, both in the universities, for example, in Kharkiv, and just common people. Thank you.
First, don't try to convince everybody. It's impossible and you waste time. So focus on certain groups first. Second, sometimes just do it. Sometimes you don't have time. If it is a fire, you would not try to convince the people in the house that they should think something about putting down. You have to be a fireman. This is like instability in the economy. You have to save the people, even if they do not understand. Even not everybody understands what is the danger. So putting down a fire does not need to be preceded by long-lasting persuasion. The budget, stability, etc., etc. Then on changes which are not so urgent, you have to know who are the main opponents. And this requires sociological investigation, surveys. And you have to know what groups cannot be convinced. Don't try. Waste of time. Then the opposite groups are who do not need to be convincing because they are convinced, but they are passive. Then try to organize them. You know, you do not, in democracy, you do not win with majority. You win with well-organized minorities. This is the, and this is good. This is not bad because you create majorities with convinced minorities. So create such minorities, and this requires very good targeting and research. Quick research. If you don't have the, as I said, for the second time I was in the government between 1997 and 2000. And this was not an easy job because I have to, this coalition I have was not very cohesive. We agreed at the general level, we agreed about privatization, etc., but we disagreed with the methods. So it took a lot of time and sometimes internal infighting to win on the methods. And then it's important to take off, to prevail. Then sometimes you need, you have, you know, to be faster. If you want to certain reforms, you have to have good intelligence service and peaceful. So you have to know what groups would pressure, for example, the main spending, increases in spending. And then once you identify, move faster. I was a Minister of Finance, I keep to keep the balance. So for example, in Poland in 1998, I knew that medical personnel is ready to protest for higher spending. There was no money, and they did not deserve. So what we did, I have a very excellent group of young people, right, fast working. Then we prepared something which was called the Black Book of Waste in the House. And this was publicized, and they were pushed into the defensive. They could not attack, they could explain why are wasting so much money, and in addition they are demanding more money. So you have to be proactive and you have to be very fast in democracy. Then you have to know also which attacks are forthcoming, and then not to be surprised. For example, in Poland there were many tax breaks which were supposed to benefit disabled people, but in fact profited business. And they were defending it very much because there was like tax reduction. And I know they are going to use the disabled people to organize a demonstration in front of Minister of Finance. But we were mentally prepared. We are not shocked. We knew that they were going to do that. Third, look for allies on their respective strategies. You do not need only allies who agree with everything you do. It's very difficult. You don't have. But when we were restructuring the mining sector, meaning reducing the number of the miners in the mines, extracting miners from the mines, then there were protests by the trade unions, and I was looking for allies, and I learned that the communities where the mines were located were not happy with the miners because the mines were not paying taxes. So I concluded an agreement with them. And we moved against the miners, the trade unions of the miners. So you have to be very fast. And for that you need a very good team. And you have to work a bit faster than other people.
You're getting a lot of advice here. Anybody else, sir?
My name is Jaroslav. I'm graduated from the business school with the governance program. I have questions. The first one is, like you had a solidarity in 90s, and we have already 4 movements in Ukraine since 90s. Like the first was national movement, then we had two Maidans and also anti-Kuchma protests. What do you think we didn't learn from our movements that Poland has in just one movement? That's the first question, to your personal opinion. And the second, your needs in the government were done in very unpopular way, and in Ukraine, in the 90s decided not to do unpopular things. How did you maintain the public discussion on doing this
Acting.
injections?
Well, there are different histories because of different conditions, and there's no point in deploring that the reform movements. It's very good that you have such a vitality. I was also very much disappointed what has happened after Orange Revolution, but it has happened. And it was all the more impressive that what has happened in Maidan. And post-Maidan, you have to maintain it, but to focus on supporting what is good, the government policies, and to criticize, but in a professional way, what should be changed, what should be speeded up. Because there's a massive people in the media who are saying everything is bad, which is not true, and it's harmful. Just this total criticism, even worse than in Poland. Can you imagine? That's the first. Now, if you start from a very difficult situation, economic situation, like the one which existed in Poland in 1989, then you have two strategies. You delay change, or make it slowly, and then economy deteriorates, and you lose popularity forever, and country suffer, which is the most important. If you inherit the same situation, but you move fast, which makes that some groups think they suffer, then you lose popularity, perhaps a little less, but country improves, and then, on a personal note, you recover. And this was not the most important thing for me, because I just wanted to have a job, to make a job, which was historical in Poland. We started to catch up with the West for the first time in 300 years. It's absolutely historic, so this was enough. But besides, it turned out that after a while, some people recognized. This is why I was elected chairman of Freedom Union, and then I have won elections in the most industrialized party in Poland, and let me say, objectively, I am one of the most popular former politicians.
Panie Jarosławie, I cannot explain why we don't study from Poland, yes, but how this is in English. We never lose chance to lose the chance, yes, in our history, and this is already, somebody told that 2 revolutions is too much already in my life. We had 3 already revolutions, and I don't know how many we will meet. But maybe I will reverse where in our territory a little bit. Crisis 2008 used to be just Poland had plus 2%, yes, GDP, something like this, and China, maybe not bad. All the countries fall down a few percent. Ukraine minus 15. Now Ukraine again minus 15. And when I'm going, I was going abroad that time, and everybody asked me, how do you survive? We cannot understand. And now they ask me, how do you survive with this minus? You see, and I explained this. How this shade economy, black economy, yes, black economy, we have very, very, very big percent of this economy. So, I'm interested in how Poland that time, because I used to be on market that time. There used to be black economy as well, but not so big. How to manage this to make them move in the right direction, to support and slowly to come to the legal territory. Did you have this problem?
Sure, still have. Not less. Yes, no. Okay. First of all, it's too easy in Poland to get various social benefits. And then people get it, for example, unemployment benefits, and work in the second economy. And this is unfair competition to legal businesses. And we have to do something. We are working on that. Yes. So you have to streamline the benefits and also the agencies which distribute it. This is what, on just reacting to the problem. But a broader comment. Why Poland has avoided a crisis after 2007 and 8? Because we have not allowed the boom to develop. So if you have credit boom, then you have then a collapse, usually. And Poland has avoided for some reasons. We have never lowered interest rates too much, so there was not a credit boom. But not only Poland, other countries which have not allowed the credit boom to develop has performed better than boom countries. Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, on my list. Okay? So one lesson is, be very careful about the growth of credit. If it is too fast, everybody is happy, there is a boom, and then everybody is unhappy. Okay? Now, in Ukraine, you have suffered two boom and bust periods. 2007, 2008, because the credit growth was too fast, and there was a collapse, and then you suffered a crisis because of the Russian aggression. And you cannot control this. This was not a boom bust, but was another sort of a crisis. It was just a hit on the economy, which you have to survive and to show, to do something which Putin is very much afraid. To be democracy and to be very successful. I think this is sufficiently strong motivation for you to do it. But let me, if I may, about communication, which is very important. You have to be very careful with the language, because normal language is full of traps. Traps are those words which evoke emotions, which work against reforms. And there are two kinds of words, nice words and bad words. Nice words are very dangerous, like social, common, national, etc. They are usually used to denote bad policies. Social policy sounds good, but in fact, usually it's very bad. What is the most dangerous ministry in many countries? Ministry of Social Affairs. I am not joking, I am warning you. Because they usually pretend to be Santa Claus. They distribute, they want to eradicate poverty with handouts. And they destroy stability and discourage people from working. So the best social policy is this, which allows private entrepreneurs to create more jobs. This is, so merge, if you cannot abolish Minister of Social Affairs, merge it into the Minister of Economy. I am not joking, this is really. This is what. So be careful of these words, nice words, which produce emotions in support of bad policy. The Germans invented soziale Marktwirtschaft. And, you know, there are hundreds of definitions, including
I'll
Germany.
give you one, but later.
No, of course. You know, soziale Marktwirtschaft may denote socialism, and soziale Marktwirtschaft may denote liberalism. And you have many German professors who write dissertations. Who is social market economy? What is social market economy? Typical academic. Why social? Because it sounds better. Social market economy, you feel it's better than normal. It's more human, more social spending, etc. So this is another trap. And on the other hand, you have words which are bad, but these words are used to demonize what is good. The word capitalism was invented by socialists. It sounds bad, but if add to this wild capitalism, it's terrible. Yes, it's terrible. So remember, language is full of traps. The first step is to react to the language. Shock therapy. Why it is used? To frighten the people. People usually confuse this with electric shocks. And that's unpleasant, isn't it? So never use. Whenever I am asked about shock therapy, my first reaction, no.
But
I don't want to frighten the people. It's a radical approach, decisive, etc., etc. Then there are mental schemes, which are very dangerous. And they stem from Marxism. Marx has infected and continued to infect people's minds by a very small, very simple but false scheme, powerful emotional. The scheme is this, that under capitalistic economy you have two groups. The first group is bad. It's called bourgeois. Now it is called investors. It's bad by definition. Why it is bad? Because it exploits the good group, which are proletariat and employees. Now many people are infected by that. The zero-sum game. Yes? So if somebody gains, everybody loses, and who gains? The rich, not the poor. So do not follow this trap and to unmask this. So what I've been doing, I am working with the best satirists in Poland. Because satirists are better than professors. To ridicule, one has to ridicule, to unmask. Because those people who pretend to work for the poor are hurting the poor, usually. And they pretend to be better on the moral ground. They're imposters. And they do not deserve any respect. So one has to be very hard and professional with that. Unmasking propaganda, unmasking anti-market propaganda.
Food for thought. Anybody else? Well, I guess we've reached the end. It was an extremely rich debate. I could only wrap up by saying, well, the more reforms, the more possibilities for change, as Professor Bальцерович likes to say. For positive change, indeed. Important detail. So thank you all again for sacrificing this Saturday afternoon. Thanks to our panelists for joining us here. And I'm sure this is not the last debate that we've had on how to use the momentum for change, for positive change in Ukraine. Again, thank you all for coming, and see you again.
If I may, on behalf of Ukrainian Catholic University, on behalf of Lviv Business School and School of Public Management, I would like to say thank you for this visit, and also for, if I may say, quite challenging or questioning us things which you have mentioned. It's true, probably here is the much more, I would say, group of people who are on the front and who don't like many populistic things and understood very well what you are mentioning. But right now our task is, as always, is to go and to talk to people who are who have the perception exactly which you have mentioned. So I think now all of us will have a lot of job to do. So that's a small present from the university for you.
Oh, very nice.
Chciałbym jeszcze podziękować bardzo panu ambasadorowi, panu profesorowi LvBS za wszystkie takie inicjatywy, które rzeczywiście zawsze skupiają się na naszym uniwersytecie. Bardzo panu profesorowi dziękuję i do miłego zobaczenia następnym razem na różnych spotkaniach.
Tak, planuję następny przyjazd.
Bardzo.